Hi, everybody. First of all, welcome to this video presentation of our GDC talk. With everything that's going on, we've decided that it would be better to give you this content through a video. So thank you for watching. So we're going to talk about our experience as creative and business minds working on a game as a service title over the last 4 years of our game Dead by Daylight, and want to share some knowledge. First of all, big disclaimer, I just want to say that if you're looking at this video in the future, we might have changed our way to work because game as a service evolves rapidly and it can change quickly. But the part of it, namely the values that we're going to talk about, are solid and forever. Okay, let's start. All right, so first of all, I would like to take a moment for us to introduce ourselves so that we can give a little bit of credibility to the talk. So I'm Dave Richard. I'm the creative director on Dead by Daylight. I shipped a lot of games in my almost 20 years in the industry, but most importantly, I worked 4 years on a game as a service title.
And hello everyone, my name is Isabelle. I am the head of product strategy at Behavior Interactive. I have over 9 years of experience in product management, but more importantly, I spent 6 years on live games.
All right, so just so that we're all on the same page, the game we're going to talk about is Dead by Daylight. It's a 4v1 multiplayer horror game. So 4 survivors are facing one killer. Killer is trying to kill and sacrifice all the survivors to a giant entity that lives in the sky, and the survivors are trying to escape by repairing generators. So that's the gist of it. But more importantly is that over the 4 years of development, we've added a lot of content to the game, a lot of characters, worlds, survivors, killers, and franchises. And we've been called some sort of a Smash Brothers of horror games, like a real love letter to the horror genre.
Some facts about Dead by Daylight. The game first launched in June 2016 on Steam. A year later, we launched on Xbox One and PS4. In 2019, we launched the Switch version as well as the Windows Store version. Dead by Daylight is also available on mobile since April 2020. So today, we want to talk about what we believe makes an effective game as a service. We are going to share with you the lessons we learned from 4 years of life of Dead by Daylight.
So first of all, what is needed to have a successful game as a service? So first of all, it needs players. You need to be able to entertain players, engage them, and retain them. They need to feel good and have fun.
And a game as a service also needs a recurring source of revenue to support the game's development cost over the long run.
Usually in the gaming world, we see these two components as direct opposite. We have a fear of backlash. Like for myself as a creative, when we think about making money and monetization, we think of it as an evil feature. You know, let's not put that in the game.
And believe me, it's not always easy to be the person in charge of thinking about what monetization features we need to implement. As Dave said, it's often seen as something a bit dirty. But the thing is, if we don't make money, it's not going to work. We need to make money to keep supporting the game's development cost.
And with too much focus on making money and on the source of revenue, the players might leave, and without any players, the game is dead.
So, spoiler alert, we have a live game with microtransactions. So we have an in-game store, and we also have a battle pass. And at the same time, over its 4 years of existence, Dead by Daylight has seen over 20 million players, an average of 2.7 million of monthly active users, has consistently been in Steam top 10 most played games since launch. The dev team has also grown from around 30 devs at launch to around 200 devs today, and Dead by Daylight is also the most streamed horror game on Twitch. For us, the key was really to understand that
entertaining players and making money aren't necessarily opposed.
We've put the conflicting elements on the side, and we realized that really these two facets of making the game would create a synergy. One would feed the other. We realized that if we wanted to support the game over the years with a source of revenue, we would need to make this source of revenue a joy for the players. So the key here was to add monetization feature that would add to the fun aspect of the game. We did that with a lot of soul searching, and we sat down together and we found 4 core values that we would use anytime we would create a monetization feature in Dead by Daylight. And these 4 values we are sure would work for any game as a service title. They are valuableness, respect, generosity, and transparency.
Okay, so let's start with valuableness. What we mean by valuableness is 3 things. First, don't remove value to sell. Focus on quality versus quantity and enrich the game. So, if my goal is to make money, the instinct would be to look at what players need the most and sell this thing, right? So if you need a sword to fight a monster, it's easy. I'll give your sword a durability so that you have to buy a new one. And I'm even gonna make the sword more powerful. Easy money, right? Well, we decided not to do this as, firstly, this will make our game very expensive to play, and secondly, it will make the game even pay to win in our case because you play against other players. It's important to make money, but not at the detriment of players having fun and the game's DNA. Ultimately, retention is at the heart of how well your monetization is doing. So the key takeaway here is don't remove value to sell. There are other ways, like
selling cosmetics, for example. Cosmetics are optional, but players usually love them because it allows them to customize their beloved characters. With monetization, if you don't know where to start, characters customization is the type of monetization feature that usually works well because it is additive of value.
So, we decided to sell cosmetic items in the store. Cool! Now, our next challenge was to fill the store with content. We have tons of different killers and survivors. So let's create lots of color variations of our characters, and also let's create tons of weapon skins. Maybe we could invest in tools that can automate this process. Filling the store that way would be super efficient. Well, even if it might sound efficient to create cosmetics that way, we decided not to do this and to focus our efforts on creating very high quality cosmetics rather than focusing on quantity. Why? Because we, devs, would love efficiency to equate efficacy, but with cosmetic items, what really matters for players is the quality, not the quantity. So from our experience, what sells is not a store with tons of color options and a wide range of t-shirts, but a store with high quality items. And from our experience, what works for us is high quality cosmetics that sell a fantasy. They look way more interesting for our players as they allow them to express their personality. Also, they are more fun to produce for our teams of artists.
The dream of playing a specific character is at the core of these cosmetic. They have a strong fantasy that goes beyond gameplay purposes. So being able to customize your character allows the player to express their own personality, and it also allows them to play very specific roles, like specific characters that exist in franchises, for example, and that's super important and will adds a lot of value to the cosmetic. They also enrich the game universe. They add variety to the game. They enrich the visual. So the more cosmetic that we add to the game, especially high quality one, it means that you'll see more differences in the game world every match you play. There's also something very special we do in DBD. The cosmetics are not only just visually stunning, they also come with a story, and it's a chance for us, it's a platform to tell more stories about our character and deepen the lore so that the players can know more about their favorite characters. Obviously, there are some limits. We've found our own limits because we're doing a horror game. There's some things we have to refuse as cosmetic item, even though we know they would be super popular and they would sell well. For example, we could have a demand to make a grim, killer-looking aesthetic item for a survivor, and vice versa. We could have like a very funny or sexy, in this example, skins that are requested on our characters. And this goes against immersion. When we see these skins, we might think that a lot of people would love them, but a lot of people would go into a horror game expecting things to be horrific. And when this happens and it's funny, it breaks the immersion, it breaks the game. So it doesn't add to the gameplay experience. So it has to be a no. So last year we released a new feature to our game called the Archive. The Archive is amazing because it was a dream that I had for a long time in the game, a platform to be able to tell even more stories, to show animatics, and to show our characters in new ways that we didn't have in the game before, and also to add new objective to the game. Well, we had an issue with this feature because it was super expensive and it was hard to support on the long term. We knew on ISA's side, they also wanted to add a battle pass to the game. And so both of us, we thought, well, this is the perfect opportunity because ISA also wanted to make sure that the battle pass was not just a battle pass. So this is when we've created this amazing feature that has both. So we've decided to add a lot of value to a battle pass. It offers more lore, more story, it offers gameplay opportunities, and it offers tons of rewards that are linked directly to the story that we're putting forward in the Archive.
This strategy that we have to add lots of value to our monetization features has paid off, because we have in general 1 player out of 5, sometimes more, sometimes less, but in general 1 out of 5 that spends money after the initial game purchase. So this is very good. That works well for us. But something important to know is that creating outfits requires a significant investment. This is our skins production pipeline. Making one single fantasy outfit involves easily 10 different disciplines and can easily take up to 2 months to be produced. And that's just for one skin. Now you have to fill the store, and if you have a battle pass, you have to fill the battle pass too. And there is also a maintenance cost because you need to keep adding content regularly post features launch. So this represents quite an investment. And building the store itself is also an expensive feature. You have to build the entire UI just to be able to sell skins. Then, if you need bundles, or a featured page, or a discount section, it's even more work. And you also have all of the online services like the backend services for in-app purchases, the tooling for customer support, data tracking to understand how well you are doing, and so on.
To sum up, it is more expensive to build and support when you're adding value to your game through this feature, but it's totally worth it. At scale, a cosmetic-driven business model is very profitable. So second value is respect. And what we mean by that is to respect the player's taste, player's time, and the player's money. So let's start with respect their taste. So let's take an example here. We have 2 characters of DBD and we have their popularity ranked in the graphs. So you can see that Meg, the survivor, is the top played character, and the clown is in the lowest percentage of character that is played. So the instinct here would be to leave the clown in the dust and not make outfits for him, and just focus on the characters that are more popular to make sure that they sell and that we make tons of money, right? But no, this would be unrespectful. So here's the way we want to do it, and that we do it right now. So of course, the most played characters will have a lot of outfits. This is important because these characters, you see them a lot in the game, so you want more variety, and you want to support more players with more choice so that everybody can be happy. But it also means that the underdogs will have outfits. It's important to support them. It's important to support all of these little percentages of players. And actually, when we do this, we sometimes see a surge of popularity for the character. So here's an example with the Wraith. Around Halloween last year, we've created the Halo Blight collection, which is a series of very, very cool cosmetic with visual effect. And we had this one on the Wraith, which is amazing. And we can see in the graph that at the moment we released this outfit, the Wraith had a surge of popularity and that he would be played more. So this is a high value because respecting the taste of the player, giving access to this character will make the game more fun, as you'll see more variety in gameplay as well.
Another question we had to answer was, how much should our cosmetics cost? Should we go with loot boxes or a fixed price? The logic to maximize the price of an outfit would be to sell them through loot boxes. Loot boxes would allow us to have some of our outfits valued at hundreds, even thousands of dollars, because we could make the odds of dropping some cosmetics super, super small. Easy money, right? Well, we decided not to sell loot boxes, but to offer an a la carte store instead, even if it meant generating less revenue, because we find this model more respectful of our players' wallet. Players can purchase the outfits they want. They can even purchase the individual piece of an outfit if they wish. And we also wanted our cool cosmetics to be accessible to the many, even to the smaller spenders. In Dead by Daylight, there are 4 tiers of outfit from common to very rare. Our outfits cost from $1.2 to an average of $10. And since players can purchase the pieces individually, our items actually go from 50 cents to $4.
The other component is respect their time. We talked about a battle pass earlier, right? So a battle pass system, you have to play to unlock tiers to be able to unlock some rewards. The more you play, the more you'll unlock. You can buy the tiers to unlock more content if you don't have the time to play for it. So an instinct here would be that to optimize the revenue, we should make it a super long grind to be able to get everything. Easy money, again. But really, this is also wrong for us. It goes against respect of our player. So here's how we do it instead. So first of all, we use the data out of the playtime of the players to understand what's an average player in Dead by Daylight and how much time they have to spend on the game in average. So here the idea was not to push everybody to play more to be able to grind everything. So we found out that an hour a day was the average for our players, and so we made sure that the whole Rift was accessible to everyone and that most players would be able to go through it and unlock cool content. We've also took the decision to put some of the high-valued cosmetics in the first tiers of the Battle Pass so that a lot of players would be able to get them.
Let's talk about some of our learnings now. First, we did not see backlash when we introduced our in-game store 2 years post-launch. Same for our Battle Pass introduced almost 4 years post-launch. And for the few negative comments we could see on our socials, we didn't even have time to react because we saw 10 times more players defending and supporting us. And I think that when you design monetization respectfully, this is what you get. You turn players into ambassadors. And for having worked on live games for quite some time now, I can tell you that this is the position you always want to be in. And instead of fearing backlash, we actually saw lots of positive word of mouth. Every time a competitor does something that has to do with microtransactions that gets players angry, we see lots of players praising us. Also, having a respectful monetization design helps to get the buy-in from our dev team. As Dave said at the beginning of the presentation, it is very important that your dev team doesn't see monetization features as evil features.
So to sum up this value of respect, it may sound obvious, but you need to respect players of all types, and you need to ease their chosen way to access what is fun in your game. Next value is generosity. And what we mean by that is inclusiveness. So have the most player as possible to experience what is fun in the game, to have access of what is fun in the game. And also it's to get more than your money is worth when you do decide to buy something. We put our heart and soul into these products that we're making. It costs a lot of money, a lot of resources, a lot of energy to create awesome content. So the reflex here is to say that every gameplay, every concept, every model, every marketing bit that we need to do should bring back profit. So we should put a price tag on everything. And so we would make the most money as possible. But this is not a good way to do it for us. We've decided to do things otherwise, and we've decided to be more generous. So here's, you can see on the right is a near-resistant shard, and that's our soft currency. It's a currency that you can grind through the game. So just by playing, you unlock this currency. And it allows you to unlock and play all of our original characters. Also, 60 to 70% of our store is unlockable with the soft currency. So this is great because for the characters, for example, a player that decides to not spend a dime and just play the game will eventually unlock new characters, which will add to his experience, but it will also add to the other player's experience because it will add variety to the game. So it just makes for a more healthy experience in the game. And for the skins, we found out that as a reward for your playtime, unlocking a skin and be able to show it off is very meaningful to players.
Now, when it comes to the Battle Pass, we apply the same value, generosity. So our Battle Pass contains 70 tiers, 70 levels, and I remember having this discussion with Dave that 70 rewards, it's a lot of content to produce. So our instinct was to either raise the price of the Battle Pass or just fill it with rubbish. But we felt that both solutions were unacceptable for us. So we decided to sell the Battle Pass at $10 and be generous with the content that is included in the Battle Pass, even if, monetary speaking, it made no sense. The bet here was to get players excited and bet on retention too. So we are not saying that our 70 tiers of rewards only contain awesome rewards, but for $10, players can earn over $200 worth of content. If they finish the Battle Pass, they also can get their $10 back, since $10 worth of Auric cells, our hard currency, are included in the Battle Pass. And for the players who do not wish to spend, by simply playing the game regularly, they can get over $35 worth of value.
Also, another choice that we've made is that there's no pressure to play the archive and to unlock things in the Battle Pass. All the challenges, so the gameplay that comes along with a tome in the archive, all the narrative assets are available for everyone forever. So even a new player that comes in has 20 to 30 hours of free content that's available for each archive that we release. All right, so learnings out of this value of generosity. So first of all is that it's clear for us that it leads to increased playtime. We can see here that in the graph, as soon as the store launched, the average session duration went up. So people play more, they want to get that currency, they want to unlock cosmetics. And this second graph is also super interesting because we can see that in the weeks before And the weeks after the battle pass, and of course during the battle pass as well, the average session duration also went up. So people are playing more to unlock the content of the archive. Seriously, there's not a lot of features that, I mean, monetize or not, that is able to generate such an impact on engagement. Making characters accessible encourage a better meta and diversity. So the fact that the players are able to unlock freely the characters is super healthy for the type of game that we're doing.
Another learning, allowing players to unlock content with playtime is also good for revenue. We know that players playing with more characters buy more skins, and this goes up exponentially. It is logic. Characters are a platform for cosmetics. So in other words, our revenue goes up with the amount of characters owned, so facilitating the access to characters was the right bet for us. Our Battle Pass, when it is active, generates an average of 20% incremental daily average revenue per user overall. So in addition to seeing players play more, players also end up spending more. So our bet was right about the Battle Pass. Generosity led to incremental revenue and playtime.
So to sum up, be generous, make sure that all sort of players, monetizing or not, are included in the whole game and that they are happy and engaged.
Because at the end, what we will end up having is a very virtuous loop. I remember us looking at each other with Dave, and when we saw the result, we felt very happy, because players that are happy will stay longer and will eventually monetize, and players who monetize are even more engaged and stay longer in the game. So it's really perfect. So now let's talk about our fourth value, transparency. So what does it mean for us? First, communicate your intent, always explain why, and acknowledge your mistakes. So if we go back 2 years in time, I remember Dave and I wondering how to communicate our store to our players. We were a bit, honestly, frightened by that. But what we did is that we wrote a blog post titled Our Store Philosophy that we shared with our community before the store even came out. We basically explained to them almost everything we explained to you in this GDC talk. Very transparently, we detailed our store pillars, how our currencies work, and how much everything costs. And above all, we explained to our players why we introduced the store. Our in-game store was presented at the same time as Dead by Daylight's Year 3 roadmap. So allow me to read a section of our blog post to you. We are very excited to start Dead by Daylight Year 3 with you, and want you to know that the launch of Chapter 8 in June is just the beginning of what we want to do. We believe that this game will have more anniversaries to celebrate, and we are eager to continue to support the game as the Dead by Daylight's community grows. We would like to give an early thank you to all the players who will be buying cosmetic items, as this is what will allow us to support our ambitions for the future. So, if you intend to add microtransactions in your game, telling players why you need them is super important. When players buy a cosmetic item, they invest in the game and the dev team. For Dead by Daylight players, the introduction of an in-game store had in some ways become a promise of a future for the development of the game.
And what worked well for us, and that I think is really important, is that you have to do this communication with your own voice. You need to be super candid about it. And when we did it, we had a live stream, but before that, we had a pre-recorded video made as well. And this was pretty cool because we had to work with the whole team to show these values and to show this plan. And we saw that they would get on board with what we were saying. So we knew at this point that it was going to work. If you can get your team on board 100%, it's going to be far more easier than to get your community to understand what's going on.
So in this process, as we said, we've also presented our Year 3 roadmap. And it was a great exercise. We'd like to take some time to talk about some of the learnings that we got from sharing our Year 3 roadmap with our community. So we showed to our players 1 year of content, including new killers, new survivors and maps, as well as some changes and priorities we wanted to tackle. So showing your plans long in advance helps to get players excited about what's coming, even if it is not live yet. For example, we told our players in advance that we would reinforce our anti-cheat system. And even if it got released several months later, knowing it was coming helped to keep our players patient. More generally, it was the first time we told our community that we would keep supporting the game for years to come. And as a player, or even as a streamer, it sends a strong message that they can keep investing their time and money in our game because we, devs, are committed to keep investing in it as well. After all, why would we expect a player to commit his or her time and money in our game if we don't ourselves commit to keep investing in the game too? It can also help to structure production as it forces the dev team to think about the future. It forces us to think about what priorities we want to tackle next, which also makes us work in the right order. And having some dates laid out in the future also allows us to retro-plan every phase of production from design kickoff to official release, including dedicated time for QA and dedicated time for live testing on our public test environment, for example. So having a roadmap has many advantages.
But this is definitely not for everyone. It might be more difficult for smaller studios or for a game that's not live yet. Because yeah, when you're communicating this roadmap to the whole world, you're committing to the content you're promising. Also, you're creating expectation. If you are not delivering on the content you've promised, of course you're gonna disappoint your community. You're gonna have to deal with that later. A word of advice here. The best thing is to stay high level when you're communicating about your roadmap so that you don't create too much expectation. And also make sure that you tell your community that these things might change. Communicating your roadmap also creates a precedent. Every year when you present your new roadmap, there's going to be a want that this roadmap is more awesome than the previous one. So that gets increasingly more difficult. And of course, it cannot be bigger and bigger and more impressive every other year. So what's important here again is to explain to your community why it is like that. Sometimes you have a technical debt that you need to fix. Sometimes you need to do other type of investment in your product for the longer term. So that way you can make sure that the player understands what's going on and then can get hyped about a better future. So to sum it up, communicate your attention with candor, do it with your own voice, and transform your players into investors. As soon as they get it and that they want your game to succeed as much as you do, they'll become colleagues, they'll become investors. So time to wrap up. So like we explained at the beginning, to have a successful game as a service, you need players and that feel good about your game, that are having fun, and you need a sustainable source of revenue so that you can keep doing amazing content. And often these two components, when making a feature, they're seen as conflictual. By building monetization features with these core values in mind, we found out that we could make purchasing a joy. We found out that building fun features to entertain players and building monetization features to have a sustainable source of revenue can be the same thing. They can fuel each other and become synergistic. To say it another way, a player who's having fun and is entertained is hooked for the long term. The player becomes a colleague. He works with you to make the game better. And eventually, they can become investor. They will want to give you access to this power to be able to build even more awesome feature for the game.
And when spending is a joy, when monetization enriches the game experience, and when the store becomes a promise of a future for the game, we have a virtuous loop where monetization generates engagement and engagement leads to monetization.
Before ending this talk, we wanted to address a last question that we thought might be useful to all the creative and business minds out there. If we had done things differently, would we have made more money? Well, It is hard to say because it would have required us to do an A/B test to release the game with 2 different business models at the same time. But what we can say is that we are happy with the choices we made because our players are very engaged and our player base hasn't stopped growing since launch. We are profitable and the money we generate has allowed us to keep investing in the game. Our values are important to our devs, which we believe has a positive impact on our employees' acquisition and retention. And finally, we believe that our brand image towards our players is also positively impacted, which is great to acquire new players, whether it's for Dead by Daylight or even for our future games in development at Behaviour.
Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed
Thank
the
you.
talk. Bye.